Hello, my friend. Welcome back to the Mindset Check podcast. I'm your host, Mesha McKittrick. This is a podcast where we believe that as you take time for a mindset check, that you have more power than you think you do. This is a podcast where we also believe that you can create your life from the inside out. We're going to talk a lot about what that means today. And, we talk about that a lot normally on the podcast, but we're diving in a little bit deeper today. Normally on the podcast, especially if you are new, we really do talk about how much power we have to create a life that feels like bliss. And so much of that comes by being able or learning how to create the state that resides inside of you, right? Your internal state. And so we usually talk about things that allow you to tap into this incredible power that already exists inside of you. So if you're new, welcome to the podcast. If you've been here for a hot minute, I'm so glad you're back. We're going to dive in a little bit deep today. I'm excited. I have been loving sharing just things from my life with you. And I did something this morning with my son that was really fun and out of the ordinary. And I love learning about man, this world is so huge and there are new things all of the time. And so I wanted to tell you about what we did today at Om Fitness. Okay. This is not a sponsor. I'm not and I don't even know how long-term this would really be, but it was a cool experience. So I thought I would tell you. Okay. So we go into this new boutique gym, and their whole strategy is you put on these bodysuits. It feels like a wetsuit. It's like a wetsuit, right? It goes down to your knee and then down to your elbow. And this suit inside of it has these pads that are stimulation. Right. If you've ever had a stim machine or a TENS unit that you've put on your body, whether you were at the chiropractor or if you have one at home. By the way, if you don't have one at home, those are fantastic for muscle recovery and bringing more blood flow to an area. So if you ever get a sprained ankle, or if you have, kids that play sports or whatever, these are things that are this TENS unit. Essentially, you put two little pads with wires, and then it's battery powered, and it creates an electrical pulse or stimulation in your muscle to help that muscle repair. So side note, because that came up, I will put in the show notes a link for a TENS unit in case if you want one for your house. But the Om Fitness Gym has these suits with what are like stimulation pads all over in the suit. And then you go into the class, and the class is 25 minutes. You're doing very low impact movements. You're just kind of moving your body a little bit. And meanwhile, this stim machine, right? This wireless bodysuit that you have on is creating this muscle stimulation. So you are getting so much more activity in your muscles than you would in a normal workout. You guys, I think it's been about 5 hours since this workout. My muscles are already screaming at me. So anyway, I just thought it was such a fun experience. So if you have something that is like that in your area, check it out, because they let you check it out for free and it's just fun. So again, I probably should have teamed up with them to give them a shout out, but honestly, it's just something that I thought was fun. So, also, and PS, they also have red light when you're done. So you're changing your clothes and you can just stand there in front of red light for 10 minutes and then get the rest of the way changed, and then you head home. It is really a great idea. So I don't know, maybe that will be one that we all wish we came up with ourselves. All right. And then one more thing I want to tell you before we jump into the podcast today is I have something that I'm going to throw at you after the podcast is over, just to see if there is any interest for this idea that I have. I'm really excited about it. So make sure you stay tuned to the end to check out what that's all about. All right. Without further ado, let's jump into today's podcast. I want to share a story from 2012. This is a very personal story, a very vulnerable part of my life. And I want to share it with you because I can see something much more clearly now. And I think there is a lot of power in looking back. So I was given direction, even divine direction. And in this circumstance, I tried and I did what I understood. But I understood so much more now. And so I want to share this with you in hopes that it helps bring clarity to your life, maybe for something that you are experiencing, or, hopefully it helps you to understand a little bit more about the way that we keep our state, the way that our hearts are. Okay. So again, I'm telling you, this is a very vulnerable story. And this is something that Jake and I talked about in season 2 of the podcast. And we did 2 episodes about it. It's a story that could be many, many episodes. It is season 2, episode 27 and 28. And so if you are finding yourself like, oh, I want to know more about that story, you can go back to those episodes and listen, because I'm just going to be sharing a small part of the story. But I will give you the background of how this story came to be and how, honestly, how deep in the mud we were at the time. When I say mud, I mean like really thick, stinky mud. Like tough stuff, okay? So there was a circumstance that happened where my husband was being investigated for securities fraud. And it was awful. It was terrible because, there's an element when you feel so innocent and the system is so backward and telling you not even to tell the truth about what happened, because if you tell the truth, then they could twist it this way. We were literally told by our lawyers on multiple occasions, no, don't say that, because if you say that, they can twist it into this. And it just gave us such a glimpse into the legal system, and it hurt our hearts so terribly. But essentially what had happened is my husband had invested in an energy and infrastructure project, and the guy lives in Nevada. We used to live in Nevada, and he had told some friends and family about it, and they had invested as well. So turns out the guy was further investigated and found out, honestly, to our great surprise, deep breath, that he was squandering the money, that he was doing things with the money that wasn't appropriate. We had no idea, and we had received none of the money. We didn't receive any finder's fees. We weren't essentially in the project, taking part in the project, making decisions about the project, and bringing money into the project. We were just, excited about the return on investment and just kind of opened our mouths, and other people got excited too. And that's how it was, right? And then my husband felt so much responsibility because he had told these other people about it, that whenever he received an update, he would update our friends and family. And so the law or the state kind of looked at it like he was more involved than he was, even though they could look at our bank trail and see like we had received nothing, zero. Like we were not players in this, and we didn't make any decisions. And it was actually super heartbreaking when this kind of landed in our laps as big as it did. Because what happened is 3 U.S. Marshals showed up at our house, and there's more on that story in the other episodes. They arrested my husband, took him to jail. I bailed him out the next day and met with attorneys. And we were so naive and so shocked. And it was like heart-wrenching. It literally ripped our souls apart. It was so sad. That next day, when my husband got out, we met with an attorney immediately. And after he got showered and cleaned up and all of the things, the first place we wanted to go was the temple. And in our church or in our religion, we believe that the temple is a place where we can communicate with God, where we can be close to him. It's a place where it's very quiet and you can receive instruction from him. And gosh, we wanted to be there. And we drove there and we were sitting in the parking lot and literally still looking over all of this paperwork that they had. And we were seeing evidence that he had spent like the money that, say, like my uncle had given on like a truck. We were heartbroken. We were like, this is such a mess. And we were having a conversation about, is this all fraud? Like, did he totally take us, or was he still trying to do the project, but then he just wasn't clear about where he was spending the money? And we just had such a hard time wrapping our minds around the idea that it could be fraud. We were so sidewinded. And then we had also heard a recording of him, this main investor guy, and he had thrown my husband under the bus. And that was so heart-wrenching. He was trying to tell, like, the investigators that Jake was the bad guy. And we could not believe it. It was like somebody holding, I don't know, this doesn't even hold any, like, weight. But if somebody was holding, like, a color in front of your face trying to tell you it was the color that it wasn't, like, they were holding a sheet of green paper and they were saying, this is orange. And you're in such disbelief because you know it's not. And at the same time, it was such a... It had so much weight, so much gravity, so much loss, so much sadness. And the thought that, like, our names were being pulled down in that, it was really so hard. So I'm illustrating what was happening so that you can understand that we were a mess. We were in a really hard place. And we walked into the temple to try to just breathe and just try to gather ourselves and try to get a little bit of direction. And the moment that I sat down, I was holding some scriptures in my hand. And I was guided, literally guided to this particular scripture. And I just have to share with you because it gives the direction that I received at the time, and also because it's mind-blowing how spot on this scripture was. And this is a scripture from Doctrine and Covenants, which is a book that we believe to be scripture. Doctrine and Covenants 10:37. This is what it says. But as you cannot always judge the righteous, or as you cannot always tell the wicked from the righteous, therefore I say unto you, hold your peace until I shall see fit to make known unto the world concerning the matter. Wow. I feel like it spoke to our hearts immediately because we were like, wait, did he totally take us? Is he totally wicked and like trying to take money from people? Or is he trying to do good things with it? Or, and he's just not doing it the right way. Like, what is going on here? We were super confused. And so it was like, you can't always tell the wicked from the righteous. You don't know. But for you, your job is to hold your peace. That's your job. So beautiful. And so we definitely felt like that was speaking directly to us. And as we were looking at the action that it said, for us is to hold our peace. I saw that had a reference, right? Another spot in scripture where that term showed up. And so I looked it up, and that was Exodus 14:14. And we found, the Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. It felt like a promise to us, right? Like, we get it. Like, you're aware of us, and our job is to hold our peace. And so what I want to talk to you about today is holding your peace in really troubled times. And what I know now, like, why were we asked to do that in the first place? Because do you know how that is so difficult to just say, like you're super worked up and someone's telling you to calm down? It feels like it doesn't work. But we understood that that was what our job was, but it still felt so hard. It still felt really tough with what we were up against, because we were up against, possible jail time. We were up against incredible fees, and we also were so blinded because we didn't ever have experience in a legal matter like this, and so it just feels like you're so, literally just so scared, and yet you're being told to hold your peace. So one thing that I did totally understand and know is that spending time ruminating in worry wasn't helpful. Yet that was something that was the opposite of peace. So essentially what I could do is break down peace and say, what's the opposite of peace? And whatever that is, like, we need to stay out of that. But that was like a whole nother story, because even if I was able to do it more, Jake is the one that was faced with really like incredibly scary things. And he would wake up at night with worry and just so scared, and it's like the whole thing, worrying over what is to come and what hasn't happened yet. And like, just for a glimpse into the future, this whole thing lasted, I think, 4 years. It was a very long time, and we kept going back to court, and our attorneys were all prepared, and that guy wouldn't show up, and we'd pay more money to our attorneys. And it was an insane, like, huge drain of money for us, like so much money. It was such a hard trial. And this would have been the really, really hard thing to continue to stay out of whatever was the opposite of peace. Super hard, right? But we did, put the scripture up, try to remind ourselves about it. We definitely tapped into peace. Like, I made some art, and we knew that it kind of said peace, even though it didn't outwardly say peace, because that wouldn't be cool, right? So it's just like these cool art pieces that had a lot of deep meaning to us, and they had the symbol of peace in them. And so I painted those, made those, put them up on the wall. I bought a sign. There was this really cool sign that was on white canvas, and it said, peace. It does not mean to be in a place where there is no noise, trouble, or hard work. It means to be in the midst of those things and still be calm in your heart. Like, that resonated with me so deeply, and it resonates with me on a whole nother level today because of what I understand about our heart and heart work and vibration and emotions and how those contribute to our frequency. It's literally phenomenal. I think it's like the beginning of the whole path that I took to learn all of the things that I learned, right? I guess that actually started at the very beginning of this road. And this might actually be a really good thing to point out, is that, there was a lot of worry and anxiety that built up to this point. So I don't know if that, for me, that feels like an important piece of the puzzle, because we continue to attract what we feel. And I'm just going to leave that there, because I try not to buy too much into that, or to try to dissect and say, well, does that mean that these bad things happened because of this bad thing that was already happening, or what? I try not to buy too much into that, except for that I can take responsibility for where I am at right now, and that I can do my best to be able to be in good vibration and to be able to have that be in my magnetic field so that I can attract good things. Okay? So hopefully that sits for you. But it did become a very confusing thing when we were in it because, it was kind of like one of those moments where it's like, well, does that mean that I'm just supposed to hold my tongue and not say anything? No, no, that's not peace. Does it mean to put a smile on and say you're fine when you're not? Well, that's also not peace. So does it mean to pretend or to fake your state? Absolutely not, because that really isn't peace. And so how do we get to letting peace completely reign inside of you to be the opposite of fear? So I came up with 3 things that if I could go back and just have a conversation with myself and I could just say, these are the things, Mish. These are the things. Focus on this. Stay focused. Focus on this, right? So the first thing is something that I think I did understand back then, and that is trust. And with this being direction that came from God, and because I'm a very, I feel like I am a very faithful and spiritual person, that trusting in His word that He will get us through it, that was such a comfort to me. But trust doesn't just automatically come because that happened. One thing that I think is very, very helpful is to look back and kind of catalog life and to see the places where He showed up for you in times past. For me, that's huge. You might have a completely different set of beliefs, and whatever that is, that really is okay. But we really cut through the noise when we can share how it is for us, and then you can figure out how it applies to you. However that sits for you, and wherever you can place the idea of remaining and being in trust. I felt like that was a really key thing, and to look for past events that could help me stay there. Because when you are in the middle of it, man, it feels like you don't know which way is up. It's really hard to see through glasses that have fogged over, right? But you still have the capability to look back in your life and to see, oh my gosh, that felt confusing too. And this is how I came out. This is how I came out of that. This is what I even learned. This is how I grew. And, you start to see things about your life that you could never see before when you never took the time to evaluate the past. So I think that brings us some solid ground to stand on going forward. So that was one of the 3 things, was trust. The second thing was to essentially honor the place where we were, to feel and process it in the moment. Okay? So how do you do that? I like to say, when you are worked up, you must work it out. You got to work it out. There are many things that you can do to work it out. There are tools like breath work and tapping and working out, right? You could do all kinds of things with working out. I love yoga because we store a lot of emotion in our hips. And in yoga, we really open up our hips and we do a lot of movement and breath. And that moves a lot of emotion through us. And actually, a couple of weeks ago, I was in yoga. And the instructor did the most incredible thing. And it happened to be on a day when I just really needed it. I needed this so deeply. And what happened is we were doing these yoga lunges and we had blocks on both sides of us. And so we'd be in a deep lunge and then we would hop to the other side, with our other foot in front. And as we did that, we would make a really loud sound that I don't really want to do in the mic because I don't want to freak your ears out. But it was like, ha, and she was like, louder, say it louder. And she's like, get all of the emotion out. And she turned the music up so loud and it was kind of dim. the lights were dim. And so you really just felt the freedom to just let go and to let go of some of these emotions. And when I started doing that, I started sobbing. I was just sobbing in this yoga class. And it was so good because I was releasing some emotion that needed to be set free. And so taking the time in the moment to really set emotion free, to process, to allow yourself to feel things, right? Like you can lay down and put a hand on your chest and a hand on your belly and just breathe and let yourself cry. You can journal and like really let some of your feelings out as you're journaling. Write the truth. Write the truth. Write the truth so deeply that you would actually be afraid if somebody read it. That's when you like know you're really tapping in. But I also think, and we've illustrated this a lot on the podcast in the past, is like, either write it out to get it out so you can be somewhere else, or just focus on the thing that you're saying so that you can say it in a way that doesn't bring more of it into your life, right? Like if you're doing it as a cathartic experience and you're writing down all of your frustrations, but if you do that every day and you're writing how negative and bad life is, like you are just recreating life over and over and you'll keep repeating that pattern. So it's really important to understand that what you're doing is feeling it to let it go. You're not feeling it to train the feeling to stay in you. So a lot of times our actions, the way that they look when we want something to stay in us, is we kind of baby them. We sit in fetal position. We lay down in fetal position, maybe in our bed, or we curl up in the shower, or we numb out to things and we try to sweep those feelings under the rug. And that is not truly honoring, like processing the feelings, if that makes sense. And so really getting into a space where you're letting the feeling go, where you're setting it free and you are really feeling it. And then you get to handle and create in the space of what's left. That's where magic happens. So that's when we can move into the third thing. So the third thing that I think is a state of action, or something that I could have done to be able to bring myself into a more peaceful state, into a more peaceful heart, is to understand and know how to create new patterns going forward. Being able to come into a state in my heart, like heart coherence, and really create a feeling there, right? Like that completely retrains the neural pathways inside of my heart. And then that feeds my brain different information than the worry that I would have been sitting in. So I let my heart lead out and feed my body, my brain, my thoughts, my state. And if I could have known how to do that then, I could have been responsible for a shift. Like, ooh, notice I'm in worry. Or if I could have walked with Jake through this would have been pivotal. Notice I'm in worry and I need to shift into peace. Because remember, that was my job. That was my job. So notice that I'm in something that's the opposite of what my job is. And P.S., just because you haven't been given a scripture, maybe specifically for you, about keeping your peace, what you really are charged with is to create a beautiful life. I would assume that that's what you want. Create happiness in your life. Create fun. Create something that feels so good. Like, we are not here to create suffering, but that is what we naturally do. Doesn't that blow your mind? And it's not until we wake up to it that we say, oh my gosh, this is happening. Well, what can I do about it? And I want something different. Do you really get this? This is not just in theory. It's not just in a journal or a cute Pinterest quote. I mean, do you really understand that you can change your whole life by changing the state of your heart, your internal state, your emotional home. That set point that you return to when you're not even thinking about it. The moments when you're not conscious. Because that's where your future is quietly being written, is in the way that you feel on a day-to-day basis. It's in the way that you feel when you're not thinking about it. And when you learn to drop into your heart on a daily basis, or you know what, don't even take that responsibility. Maybe it's 5 times a week. Maybe it's 4 times a week. It's not really such a huge deal that you have to be so vigilant, but coming into it more often, you're training yourself how to be when you're not thinking, because you're creating patterns. And when you create patterns, then you create ways of automatically thinking. And in case if you don't know by now, I just want to kind of just touch just a little bit on your autonomic nervous system. So your autonomic nervous system can show what is happening inside of you, like your internal state. So from this system, we can tell what emotion that you're experiencing. So if we were to record your heart rate and it was erratic and jumpy and all over the place, we would then be able to conclude, oh, look, you must be feeling fear and worry and sadness and anxiety and overwhelm and stress and all of these low-level feelings. But when you drop into heart coherence, you allow the breath and your feelings to change the way your heart is beating. And when you change the way that your heart is beating and you change the way that your heart is feeling, you've just flipped your ANS system to function in a completely different way. In other words, you're going to start releasing completely different chemicals from your autonomic nervous system. And if we were to take a read of your heart and we could see that it was in coherence, in a coherent rhythm, the way that it was beating, we would then be able to conclude, oh, look, you must be feeling peace. You must be feeling joy or gratitude or love or appreciation or care or happiness. These are the types of feelings that your body is feeling when your heart is beating like that. And you can sit in a space where you can train your body to do that. You can intentionally sit down and come into heart coherence. And then again, the more that you train yourself to do that, the more that it happens as an automatic pattern that your heart would beat in a more clean, beautiful rhythm, therefore feeling good most of the time. Okay, if I could have gone back and sat Mesha and Jake down in the year 2012, that's what I would have said. I would have helped them understand exactly how to do that. And I would have helped them see how much power they have, how much power they hold in their hands. So as you ponder the idea of keeping peace in your life, in your heart, or in your inner state, I want you to think for a moment about the heart and how descriptive the heart is of your state. Okay, because the heart is a synonym for one's entire makeup. We use phrases about the heart to describe the total person, right? We can describe people as being big-hearted or good-hearted, or they have a heart of gold. We can speak of people having faint hearts or wise hearts, pure hearts or a willing heart, a deceitful heart, a conniving heart, a courageous heart, a cold heart, a heart of stone, a selfish heart. Think about how the condition of the heart is reflective of the state that that person is in. And if we were to go back to Jake and Mesha 2012, we could say, you have a choice to be in a worried heart and to carry that around inside of your body. Or you get to have a peaceful heart and carry that around inside of your body. And the most exhilarating part of me describing this to you is there is some responsibility inside of this, but notice the lack of force. So it's not like I have to make myself put a smile on my face. Okay, it's actually so much more raw and beautiful. It's like, do your best to look to the past and sit in trust. Honor your current state and feel what you're feeling and process those feelings. Let them go, set them free, feel them to do so. And then number 3, create the new patterns going forward. Create your heart state, not by force, but by breathing and feeling. Breathing and feeling in a time, not in your most worried moment, not when you're freaking out and worried and you're like, why am I worried? Why am I so worried? I'm worried. I better sit in my heart. Oh my gosh, let me breathe. No. It doesn't mean that you can't take a moment and shift and come into your heart when you are worried. But often when we're in a very worried state or when we're in a really low level vibration, like we don't actually feel like sitting in our heart. And so that work can be done when you're not in that state, right? So like if you've just taken a shower and you've kind of tried to like let go of some of it, or you've processed some of it and you've done, some of the things we talked about, maybe you did a breathwork session, or maybe you did like an exercise or whatever, and you've kind of released some of the feelings, the deep emotions, you can sit in it. Or just at a point in your day when you're not so worked up, then you can sit in heart coherence and do your best to get into this state so that it can begin to rewrite your life. In other words, you're not waiting on your life to change for things to be different for you. Your life is actually waiting on you to change, right? So go back to the question of, do you really get it? That you don't have to wait for that to change outside of you. You change your life by changing you. Your internal state, your baseline, where your heart is. It's not just how you feel, it's the frequency you're living on. And when that shifts, so does everything else. No matter where you're at, you are not stuck. You are powerful. And the more that you learn about it, the more you can do about it. And it all starts inside of you. Socrates said, the secret of change is to focus all of your energy, not on fighting the old, but on building the new. So this, my friend, is what I wish I could have traveled back in time to Mesha and Jake in the year 2012 and explained to them and helped them to be able to come into something different, and how to hold their state and to allow it to create a different life. And it's the path that we figured out along the way, but dang, I wish I had a coach back then that could have shown it to me a lot faster. Because it's okay. I was able to learn a lot of cool things along the way, and because of that journey, I'm able to stand in a place right now where hopefully I'm helping you. That's the hope, because of where I've been, right? But essentially, like, these are the important things, my friend. And I really do believe that our hearts and the way that our hearts are, the peace that we hold inside of us, really is so indicative of the way that life continues to work out and play out for us for our good. And that once we start to learn how to be in a state inside of us, that our circumstances change. It's something I wish I could like stand on a hillside and make sure an entire city could understand. It would save a lot of suffering. More than ever, I hope that you can see the ways that it can benefit your life by being in a good internal state, and the way that it changes everything moving forward, the more that you're able to do that. Ultimately, I hope that you can see that when you hold a high frequency in your heart, that you have more power than you think you do. My friend, I hope with my whole heart that this podcast lands for you. In other words, that it makes a difference in your life, and that no matter what you are going through or what you're up against, that you can see that there is a lot of value in the 3 steps that I presented in the podcast. Because even if it's, life is usually big things, let's just be real. But even if it's not big things, right? Even if it's just normal life, like, we still have such a need to process as we go along and to create our patterns so that we can create this blissful state. And so that leads me to an idea. This is an idea that I have, and I want to throw it out there just to see if I get enough interest. And if I get enough interest, I'm fully going to be doing this, which I'm super excited about. So if you don't know, I have a course that's called the Heart Sync course. It's a 6-week course. It is an evergreen course, meaning it exists right now. You could take this course at any time and go at your own pace. Each lesson is about an hour and a half, and there are, in addition to the lessons, 19 meditations that you can use to learn and practice heart coherence. So what I was thinking that would be really, really fun is I would love to start a local group and a group online. So if you are local to where I live in Southern Utah, then you could participate in this local group where we meet 3 times as we all go through the course material together. Or if you're online, we could meet via Zoom as we go through the, course material together. And essentially, this is not a time for me to teach you. It's a time for me to support you. It's a time for me to say, what are your questions and how can I help guide you through, figuring out heart coherence in your life, through creating a different state. It's more like group coaching, and, someone asks a question and then everybody gets to learn together. So, I literally think it's such a fun idea. And to top it off, I was thinking it would be pretty fun if we did a buy one, get one. So in other words, you bring a friend and, you purchase it. I don't know how I'll work it out yet, but basically it'll be buy one, get one. Okay. So like, you buy one and you give an email to a friend, you can give it as a gift, or you guys can split the cost, which would then make it like $250, which is just like, what? Are you kidding? Like, you're going to get this whole course and you're going to get live coaching for $250? Wait, so you think it will really change my life that much? Like what you just listened to in that entire podcast? Wow. So I really do need to know if you are interested, because if you're interested, then, obviously it helps me to know, like, okay, I have a lot of local people interested, but not as many people that, are not local, or vice versa. And so then I know the groups that we are creating and so forth. So it's great if you're interested just to put your name on an interest list. Just let me know, hey, I would love to think about that. That sounds like I would love to do that, and I need to just think about it for a moment, right? Because kind of thinking starting it up right before the kids go back to school. So kind of towards the end of summer, but to kind of like get the momentum and the motion going forward as we kind of come into that new, season of life. I thought it would be super rich and a really great time. So go ahead, click the link in the show notes, the link that says, yes, put me on the interest list. And then I will know, like, how many are we looking at? And are we looking at 2 groups or 1 and so forth? So really excited. The other thing that you can do is, obviously there's a lot of material that you can share with the Mindset Check podcast and so forth. But this is a podcast that really helps people understand why they would even want to do the Heartsync course, right? There's a million reasons, because there's a lot of other things that I could break down for you. And I might do that. I might do an additional podcast kind of like around like the whys, why would you want heart coherence in your life type of a podcast, which could be really fun. So if you're looking for a little bit more to share with a friend, like in the arena of like, hey, I think you would really be interested in this. Check it out. Let me know if you want to do the buy one, get one with me. Like, that would be awesome. All right. So make sure that you get signed up for that if you are interested. And thank you again so much for joining us today. I want to leave you with a quote by Pema Chodron, I think is how you say her last name. This is so great. It says, inner peace begins the moment you choose not to allow another person or event to control your emotions. Until next time, my friend.